Okay, in this video, we're ready to install our Tanzu packages, and these will be listed in the description below the video. We installed all of the foundational tools in a previous video, and if you have not walked through that video, we highly recommend doing that before attempting to install these tools. Now, those tools included were Docker, AWS CLI, the Azure CLI, and other miscellaneous tools and packages. But for this video, we're going to install the file 01 Tanzu Prereqs AWS in the operator AWS folder of our cloned repository. And this will begin by prompting for a few inputs, such as the AWS region code. And one of the prerequisites is going to require that you have an account in VMware Cloud Services and that you set up an organization. Now, I know there are different ways and better ways of capturing these values, such as parameter values files and so on, but this is just the way that this project evolved, and that's how it is for now. All right, so once we captured these variables, we're then going to set our AWS account ID, which will be necessary, and the region, and then we get to where we're going to authenticate with Tanzu Network. So before we launch this script, I just want us to get a view of what some of the things that we're going to be connecting to. So you'll see here that I am logged into our VMware Cloud Services, and here's the URL. This will be the same for you if you have an account. And I am a member, probably the only member of the NYC Pivot organization. Now you'll see that the only service I have in this org is Tanzu Mission Control. And for other services, I'll be able to log in with another organization. Now, here is the Tanzu network, which we're going to be accessing in order to download these tools. Right now, you'll notice here that it actually redirects us to network.pivotal.io. So it is usually called PivNet. That's what you'll see in the code. Now, some of the things that we'll see and find in here are the cluster essentials. That's one of the packages we'll be downloading. Another one is Tanzu application platform, not in this video, but in subsequent videos. Okay, so there's Tanzu application platform, but let me go in here and see, because this is where we're downloading our Tanzu CLI from within TAP. And the version for that is going to be 1.6.1. And down here, if we click on this link here for our Tanzu Core CLI, the first thing I want us to notice here is that the version is 0.90.1. And if I click this little informational icon here, this is the URL for the actual package itself. Okay, this is the release number and the file number. Okay, we'll come back to that in the script. But before that, another thing that I do is for accessing these sites when I need to authenticate to this or that service, I'm storing all of my passwords, secrets, tokens, and so on in AWS Secrets Manager. Okay, this just gives me the assurance I can share this code and not worry about exposing any sensitive information such as credentials. And if you want to keep the scripts consistent without really having to edit them, I would suggest you do the same thing, create a secrets and secrets manager called Aria-operations. Otherwise, you're going to have to go in and modify the scripts. Okay, moving along here, we mentioned the fact that we'll be downloading this package called Tanzu Cluster Essentials. So what is that? Cluster Essentials for VMware Tanzu is going to simplify the process of installing the open source Carvel tools on our cluster. So the next logical question then is going to be, well, what are Carvel tools? So in carvel.dev here is the website for these tools, and these are for Kubernetes deployments, right? So we've got a host of tools here for managing our cluster. The first one here is Cap Controller, which is a resource that we'll deploy to our cluster, and it's going to continuously reconcile our declarative configurations that we're hosting in our Git repositories, for example, or images in our container registry. If you're familiar with models such as GitOps for deploying resources, you'll understand Cap Controller. Okay, it's purpose is to make sure that our desired state defined in our declarative configurations is the actual state in our cluster. YTT is a YAML overlay, which enables us to not have to modify the original configurations that we've applied onto our cluster, but be able to overlay any changes or settings that we want to override in those deployed resources. Okay, and then there's other tools here that are not really crucial for our purposes at this moment, but the only one I want to point out is that we'll be using this image package CLI directly in our code. An image package is basically responsible for going out to a source registry. In this case, it's going to be VMware's registry where all of our images and so forth are stored, and export those into our container registry of choice. And in this case, it's going to be Azure Container Registry. Okay, so I've covered all the things that I wanted to show us in these various portals and so on. Let's go back to our Visual Studio Code. I've got this script queued up. So we're just going to accept these defaults and then continue talking through the rest of this script. So we're logging into our PivNet account. And you can see here that we're using the AWS Secrets Manager. Here's the name of the secret that we're creating, Aria-operations. And these will be the various keys and so forth that we'll define in Secrets Manager. All right, so we log in, we scroll down. The first package is the Tanzu CLI. Here is the version that we spoke of, 0.90.1. Here is the source registry from which we'll be fetching container images. Now, once we install the Tanzu CLI, the next thing is that we're going to install a variety of different plugins. So the products and services, when they began, okay, as new services offered by VMware, all of these different products such as Tanzu Mission Control, Tanzu Service Mesh, Kubernetes Grid, and so forth, all of those had their own independent CLIs. But we're making an effort here to consolidate all of those into the Tanzu CLI umbrella, if you will. So we just have to install one package. Okay, moving along here, we're going to then install the Tanzu Cluster Essentials, which we've already looked at, which is a means of simplifying the deployment of the Carbell tools, which makes it very easy for us to manage our cluster. And you can see here that we're using the image package file CLI to download images. Okay, and we move now along to the TMC CLI, Tanzu Mission Control CLI, and log in. We're also using the Tanzu Mission Control plugin. So why both? Well, as this project began, TMC was still this CLI, right? But after getting word that this is going to be deprecated in late 2023 in favor of the Mission Control plugin, I kind of have a hybrid solution right now in my scripts that are in a transitionary phase. So I'm working through replacing all of the TMC scripts with the Tanzu Mission Control plugin. So for now, we'll need both. And then finally, we'll install the Tanzu Service Mesh or TSM CLI, log into that. I'm not sure if TSM has a plugin yet for Tanzu, but I'm sure it's on the way. So that is pretty much it. So this script only took a few minutes to run. It's already done here just before we actually wrap up this video. The next video will need to install a VPC, Virtual Private Cloud, in our AWS account. So that will be the last prerequisite that we'll need before we begin installing our clusters with Tanzu Mission Control. So we'll look forward to seeing you in that next video, and thanks for watching.